That woman will ruin him, a village elder declared during a community meeting. She's playing with fire. Despite the growing backlash, Femi remained undeterred. One afternoon, as they sat in the clinic storage room, he leaned closer. "Rose," he said softly, "leave this place. Come to the city with me. You don't belong here." Rose laughed, brushing off his words, but deep down, they ignited a longing she rarely acknowledged. Deji's quiet admiration for Nurse Rose had shielded him from the swirling rumors, but even he couldn't remain oblivious forever. One evening, as he worked on repairing the clinic's front desk, he overheard two women talking outside. "She's juggling Ton and that Femi boy," one said. "And poor Deji is just a handyman." The words stung, but Deji pushed them aside. Later that week, he confronted Nurse Rose. "Is there truth to what people are saying?" he asked, his voice steady but pained. Rose hesitated, her silence speaking volumes. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she finally said, her gaze downcast. Deji's disappointment was palpable. Though he didn't walk away completely, his visits to the clinic grew less frequent. His absence was noticed, both by Nurse Rose and the villagers, who began to wonder if her actions were finally catching up with her. By now, the rumors about Nurse Rose's relationships had reached a fever pitch. The women of Ayatoro were divided, some defended her, pointing to her unwavering dedication to the clinic, while others criticized her for her alleged improprieties. "She's human," one woman argued during a meeting of the village women's group. "Who among us hasn't made mistakes?" But her words were drowned out by louder voices. "She's supposed to be a role model," another retorted. "How can she heal us when her hands aren't clean?" Even the men of the village began to take sides. Ton's friends teased him about his infatuation, while Femi's father, a respected elder, warned him to stay away from Nurse Rose. "She's not for you," he said sternly. "Focus on your future." The clinic, once a sanctuary for the sick, became a hub of speculation. Patients whispered in the waiting room, their eyes darting toward Nurse Rose as she walked. The staff, caught in the crossfire of gossip, struggled to maintain their composure. Madam Busy, emboldened by the growing unrest, began dropping hints to the village council. "Perhaps we need someone more focused to run the clinic," she suggested during a meeting. Though no immediate action was taken, the seed of doubt was planted. Despite the mounting pressure, Nurse Rose carried on, her outward composure masking the turmoil within. Yet, the weight of her actions and the community's judgment loomed over her like a dark cloud, threatening to unravel everything she had built. It was a quiet evening at the clinic when Deji arrived to repair a broken cabinet in Nurse Rose's office. He brought with him a toolbox and the hope of rekindling the connection he feared was slipping away. As the clinic emptied, Nurse Rose offered him tea, and their conversation meandered from work to more personal topics. Deji's gentle words brought a smile to Rose's face, and she placed a hand lightly on his. It was a moment of connection, but not one meant to be witnessed. Unbeknownst to them, Ton had also arrived at the clinic, carrying a basket of yams as a gift. He paused when he saw the light in Nurse Rose's office and peeked through the slightly ajar door. What Ton saw sent his blood boiling. He burst into the room, his voice shaking with anger. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Deji stood up, startled but defensive. "We're just talking," he said firmly, but Ton was unconvinced. Words quickly escalated into shouts, and before Nurse Rose could intervene, Ton lunged at Deji. The two men wrestled, knocking over chairs and scattering the tools Deji had brought. Nurse Rose shouted for them to stop, but neither listened, each consumed by jealousy and pride. The noise attracted a small crowd from the village. Passers-by, drawn by the commotion, gathered outside the clinic, whispering and speculating. When the clinic staff finally managed to separate the men, both were bruised and seething. "She's playing us both," Ton spat, glaring at Deji and then at Nurse Rose. News of the fight spread like wildfire. By morning, the village council summoned all three to a meeting to address the incident. Elder Aleba, known for his stern demeanor, chaired the session. "This is disgraceful," he began. "The clinic is a place of healing, not a battleground for personal disputes." As the village dissected the drama, Femi watched from a distance, his mind racing. He had no intention of being dragged into the chaos, but he saw an opportunity. That evening, he sent a message to Nurse Rose, asking her to meet him at a secluded spot by the riverbank. When she arrived, Femi was waiting with a bouquet of wildflowers. "You don't belong in this mess," he began, his tone earnest. "The village doesn't deserve you. Come with me to the city. I'll take care of you." Nurse Rose looked at him, torn between the temptation of escape and the reality of her situation. "Femi, I can't just leave," she said, her voice tinged with regret. But Femi persisted, painting a picture of a life free from judgment and gossip. "You've done enough for this village," he said, taking her hand. "Now it's time to think about yourself." Their meeting was brief but impactful. As Nurse Rose walked back to the clinic under the cover of night, her mind swirled with conflicting emotions. The fight, the judgment, and Femi's offer all weighed heavily on her. For the first time, she wondered if leaving Ayatoro might be her only chance at peace. The village council meeting was tense. Nurse Rose sat between Ton and Deji, each glaring at the other. The villagers filled the hall, eager to witness the resolution of the drama that had gripped Ayatoro. Elder Alebo's voice boomed as he began, "What happened at the clinic is unacceptable and a disgrace to our community." Ton was the first to speak, his voice laced with indignation. "I've been helping Nurse Rose for months, but now I see she's been entertaining others behind my back." Deji had no business being there after hours. Deji, calmer but equally resolute, responded, "I was there for work, not to fight." Ton stormed in and attacked me without cause. "If anyone's at fault, it's him." Nurse Rose, sensing the tension escalating again, interjected. "This entire matter is a misunderstanding," she said, her voice steady but weary. "I've never encouraged anyone to fight over me, and I certainly didn't invite this chaos." The council deliberated, with villagers offering their opinions in hushed tones. After much debate, Elder Aleba delivered the verdict: Ton and Deji were to stay away from the clinic outside official hours. Nurse Rose, though spared from any formal reprimand, was warned to maintain professional boundaries to avoid further incidents. That night, Nurse Rose sat alone in her small clinic office, her mind racing. The events of the day had shaken her. Ton's accusations, Deji's quiet disappointment, and the council's judgment weighed heavily on her. Was her behavior truly to blame for the chaos?
I hope you are enjoying the story. Please, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you will be notified anytime I upload new video. Now let's continue the story.
Femi's proposal lingered in her thoughts like a haunting melody. The idea of leaving Ayatoro, its judgmental whispers and unending scrutiny, tempted her. Yet, she felt a deep connection to the village. She had delivered their babies, nursed their sick, and saved lives. Could she abandon them for a chance at personal freedom? Femi's words echoed in her mind, "You've done enough for this village. Now it's time to think about yourself." But what would leaving mean for her reputation? Would it be seen as running away? And what about the patients who depended on her? Rose knew she had to make a decision soon. Staying meant enduring the gossip and possibly more confrontations, while leaving promised an uncertain but potentially liberating future. She sighed, resting her head on the desk. "What do I do now?" she whispered to the silence. The following evening, Femi waited for Nurse Rose at their secret meeting spot by the riverbank. When she arrived, her expression was a mixture of exhaustion and hesitation. "Femi, I don't think this is as simple as you make it sound," she began. Femi took her hands, his eyes locking onto hers. "It is simple, Rose. The people here don't appreciate you. You give everything to them, and they repay you with judgment and scandal. Come to the city with me. I set you up in a better clinic, where people will respect you." His conviction was compelling, but Rose couldn't ignore the doubt swirling in her mind. "What if it doesn't work out? What if I regret leaving?" she asked, her voice trembling. Femi tightened his grip on her hands. "You won't regret it. I promise. But you need to decide now. I can't keep waiting while this village drags you down." Rose stared at him, torn between the comfort of the familiar and the allure of the unknown. As the moonlight danced on the river's surface, she realized that whatever choice she made, it would change her life forever. As Nurse Rose wrestled with her personal conflicts, another storm was quietly brewing. Ayebo, a young woman in her early 20s, arrived at the clinic one afternoon. She was pale, her usually vibrant demeanor subdued. "I need to speak with you privately," she whispered, glancing nervously at the other patients. Nurse Rose led her into a small consultation room. Ayebo hesitated before speaking, her hands trembling. "I'm in trouble," she began, tears welling in her eyes. I'm pregnant, and I can't have this baby." Rose's heart sank. Over the years, she had performed secret abortions for women in similar situations, despite knowing the risks. Each time, she promised herself it would be the last. But Ayebo's desperation struck a chord. "How far along are you?" Rose asked cautiously. "Almost 3 months," Ayebo replied, her voice barely audible. "Please, Nurse Rose, you're the only one who can help me." Nurse Rose sat in silence, grappling with the weight of Ayebo's request. The risks were immense, not just for Ayebo but for herself. If anyone found out, it would be the end of her career and possibly her life in Ayatoro. "Ayebo, this is dangerous," she began. "Are you absolutely sure about this? There are other options: adoption, support from family." Ayebo shook her head vehemently. "You don't understand. If my father finds out, he'll disown me. I have no one to turn to. Please, Nurse Rose. I'll pay whatever it takes." Rose sighed, her resolve weakening. She knew the consequences but couldn't ignore the desperation in Ayebo's eyes. "Come back tonight," she said finally. "After everyone has left. We'll discuss it further." That evening, Ayebo returned as instructed. The clinic was dark and eerily quiet, with only the faint hum of the generator breaking the silence. Rose had prepared the tools and medications, her hands steady but her heart racing. Ayebo lay on the examination table, her fear palpable. "This will be quick," Rose assured her, though she wasn't entirely confident herself. She had performed similar procedures before, but each one carried its own risks. As Rose began, she noticed something unusual, signs of complications. Her medical instincts told her to stop, but Ayebo pleaded for her to continue. Reluctantly, Rose pressed on, her mind a blur of calculations and prayers. When it was over, Ayebo seemed fine, though visibly weak. Rose gave her strict instructions for rest and medication. If you feel anything unusual, come back immediately, she warned. Ayebo nodded, thanking her profusely before slipping out into the night. But deep down, Nurse Rose couldn't shake the feeling that this time, she might have made a grave mistake. Days after the procedure, Ayebo began experiencing sharp pains in her abdomen. At first, she dismissed them as normal, but by the third day, the pain became unbearable. She staggered to the clinic, clutching her stomach, her face pale and drenched in sweat. Nurse Rose quickly took her into a private room. As she examined Ayebo, her worst fears were confirmed. There were signs of severe infection. Ayebo, why didn't you come sooner? Rose asked, her voice laced with frustration and concern. I thought it would go away, Ayebo whispered, tears streaming down her face. Please, Nurse Rose, help me. Rose administered antibiotics and fluids, but deep down, she knew Ayebo's condition required a level of care the small clinic couldn't provide. You need to go to the city hospital, Rose said firmly. I'll write a referral letter for you. Ayebo shook her head weakly. I can't. My father will know everything. Despite Nurse Rose's best efforts, Ayebo's condition worsened overnight. Fever racked her body, and her breathing became labored. Rose stayed by her side, doing everything she could to stabilize her. By dawn, Ayebo's fragile body gave out. Rose stood frozen, staring at the lifeless figure on the bed. Guilt washed over her like a tidal wave. She had known the risks, yet she had taken them anyway. Now a young life was lost, and the weight of that responsibility pressed heavily on her chest. News of Ayebo's death spread quickly through the village. Rumors swirled about the cause, with some speculating illness while others whispered darker theories. It wasn't long before fingers pointed at Nurse Rose. She was the last person seen with Ayebo, one villager murmured. What was she hiding? The village was in turmoil. Ayebo's father, a respected elder, demanded answers. My daughter left this world under mysterious circumstances, he declared at a gathering in the village square. Someone must be held accountable. Many turned their suspicions toward Nurse Rose, who had become a polarizing figure in Ayatoro. Her dedication to her work was undeniable, but her rumored indiscretions and involvement in clandestine activities had sown seeds of doubt.
I hope you are enjoying the story. Please, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you will be notified anytime I upload new video. Now let's continue the story.
The council summoned Nurse Rose to answer the allegations. Standing before the elders and a restless crowd, she struggled to maintain her composure. I did everything I could to save Ayebo, she said. She came to me in pain, and I treated her. But her condition was beyond my ability to cure. Her words did little to quell the villagers' anger. Accusations flew, with some calling for her immediate dismissal from the community. That night, Nurse Rose sat in her darkened room, her head in her hands. The walls of the village seemed to close in on her, their whispers and judgment a constant hum in her ears. Ayebo's death was the final blow to her already fragile reputation. Femi's proposal replayed in her mind. His words, once distant and tempting, now felt urgent and necessary. You don't belong here, he had said. Come to the city. Start over. For the first time, Rose saw his offer as more than an escape, it was a lifeline. She began to draft a letter of resignation, her hands trembling. If she stayed in Ayatoro, she would never escape the shadow of suspicion. But in leaving, she hoped to find redemption and peace. The decision was made. She would meet Femi the next evening and tell him she was ready to go. A new chapter awaited her, but as she packed her belongings, a part of her couldn't help but wonder if the ghost of Ayatoro would ever truly let her go. The evening nurse Rose planned to meet Femi at his house. She arrived with a bag packed with her essentials and a heart heavy with anticipation. She knocked on the door, but instead of Femi, his younger brother, Dear, answered. "Oh, Nurse Rose, good evening," Dear said, his tone hesitant. "Good evening, dear. I need to speak with Femi." "Is he around?" she asked, trying to mask her urgency. Dear scratched his head awkwardly. "Femi left this morning for school. He had to go back early for his final project. It was urgent, he didn't even get to say goodbye to most people." Rose's heart sank. "Do you have his address? I need to speak with him. It's important." Dear hesitated, but seeing the sincerity in her eyes, he scribbled down Femi's university address on a piece of paper. "Here. He's staying in the school staff quarters temporarily while he completes his project." Rose thanked him, clutching the note tightly. She had thought tonight would be her escape, but now, a new plan began forming in her mind. The following days in Ayatoro were unbearable. Everywhere Nurse Rose went, she felt the weight of the villagers' judgmental gazes. Whispers followed her, growing louder with each passing day. The village that had once felt like home now felt suffocating. "I can't stay here any longer," she whispered to herself one night as she stared at the packed suitcase in the corner of her room. The clinic, her pride and joy, had become a place of isolation, and even her most loyal patients seemed distant. Without informing anyone, she made arrangements to leave for the city. On the morning of her departure, she walked through the village one last time. Memories of her years in Ayatoro flooded her mind, delivering babies, comforting grieving families, and saving lives. But those memories were now overshadowed by guilt and scandal. As the bus pulled out of the station, Rose couldn't help but shed a tear. Ayatoro faded into the distance, and with it, the life she had built there. When Nurse Rose arrived in the bustling city, it was a stark contrast to the quiet, judgmental village she had left behind. The noise, the crowd, and the anonymity were both overwhelming and liberating. With Femi's address in hand, she hired a taxi to take her to his university. She found herself at the university staff quarters, a modest building nestled within the campus. After asking around, she was directed to Femi's room. Her heart raced as she knocked on the door. "Who is it?" came a familiar voice from within. "It's me, Nurse Rose," she said, her voice trembling. The door opened, and Femi stood there, shocked but pleased to see her. "Rose, what are you doing here? I didn't expect you so soon." "I couldn't stay in Ayatoro anymore," she confessed, her eyes brimming with emotion. "I've made my decision, Femi. I'm here to start over, with your help." Femi stepped aside, letting her in. "You made the right choice," he said, his voice firm but kind. "The city will give you a fresh start. We'll figure everything out together." As Nurse Rose stepped into Femi's modest room, she felt a flicker of hope. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, she felt like she was moving toward a future free from the shadows of her past. When Nurse Rose stepped into Femi's modest room, she was greeted by a small space barely large enough for two people. A second bed in the corner was neatly made, with books and personal belongings stacked around it. "This is my friend, Teo," Femi said, introducing the young man sitting on the other bed with a textbook in hand. Teo's expression shifted from surprise to irritation. "Nurse Rose will be staying here for a while," Femi added, avoiding Teyo's gaze. Teyo raised an eyebrow, clearly displeased. And when were you planning to tell me this, Femi? He asked, his voice cold. It's just temporary, Femi said quickly. I'll figure something out soon. Teyo muttered something under his breath and stood up. I need some air, he said, grabbing his keys and walking out. Rose could feel the tension in the room but chose to remain silent. She sat on the edge of Femi's bed, feeling out of place and uneasy. I didn't mean to cause trouble, she said softly. It's fine, Femi assured her. I handle Teyo. Don't worry about it. The following days were anything but peaceful. Teyo's annoyance grew as he realized Nurse Rose's presence was disrupting his routine. He was especially upset about having to share the cramped room without prior notice. One evening, he confronted Femi. This isn't fair, Femi. You should have told me before bringing someone to stay here. This is my space too. I know, and I'm sorry, Femi replied. But Rose needed help. She's going through a tough time. Tough time or not, this arrangement isn't working for me, Teyo snapped. Find her another place. Quickly. Rose overheard their conversation and felt a pang of guilt. She knew she was intruding, but she had no other options at the moment. To make matters worse, Femi's girlfriend, Cynthia, began showing up unannounced. Each time she visited and found Rose in the room, her irritation was evident. Femi, what is she still doing here? Cynthia asked one evening, her arms crossed. You never mentioned you'd be playing house with someone else. It's not like that, Femi said, trying to calm her down. She's just staying for a short while until I arrange something for her. Cynthia glared at Rose. I hope it's very short because this isn't sitting well with me. After a week of tension and awkward encounters, Femi managed to find a small room for Nurse Rose to stay in, not far from the university gate. It was basic but private, a single room with a small bed, a table, and a chair. When Femi took Rose to see the place, she tried to hide her disappointment. It was far from the comfort of her home in Ayatoro, but she reminded herself that this was a new beginning. Thank you, Femi, she said with a forced smile. I'll make it work. I'm sorry it took so long, Femi said. It's not much, but it's close enough for me to check on you regularly. As Rose settled into her new space, she couldn't shake the feeling of isolation. The city was vast and unfamiliar, and the people she encountered were indifferent, a stark contrast to the tight-knit community of Ayatoro. Despite her unease, she resolved to make the best of her situation. This was a chance to rebuild her life, and she was determined not to let her past define her future. The small room near the university gate quickly became Nurse Rose's new world, but it was a lonely one. The bustling city outside offered little solace, and Femi's visits, though frequent, were never long enough to fill the void. Whenever Femi wasn't around, Rose's thoughts would spiral. She imagined him and Cynthia together, laughing, sharing moments she couldn't be part of. The thought gnawed at her, deepening her sense of isolation. The nights were the hardest, the silence stretching endlessly. By the third week, loneliness had taken a heavy toll. Rose began to crave companionship, someone to talk to, someone who could make her laugh and distract her from her insecurities. It wasn't long before she found herself entertaining the idea of making new friends. Rose met Daniel, a cheerful and charming young man who often passed by her building. He lived nearby and seemed eager to strike up conversations whenever he saw her. At first, it was harmless, friendly chats in the corridor, brief exchanges about the weather or city life. But as days turned into evenings, Daniel began visiting her room. His jokes made her laugh, and his presence eased her loneliness. "You're too pretty to be cooped up in this room all the time," he teased one evening. "It's not so bad," Rose replied, though her smile hinted at her gratitude for his company. Daniel wasn't the only one. Another young man, Toby, who lived down the street, started stopping by occasionally. His visits were less frequent than Daniel's, but he brought snacks and stayed just long enough to keep Rose entertained. Femi remained unaware of these visits until one evening when he decided to surprise Rose. Femi arrived unannounced, a bag of groceries in hand, hoping to check on Rose and spend some time with her. As he climbed the stairs to her room, he heard muffled laughter from inside. Curious, he knocked on the door. When Rose opened it, her smile froze. Behind her, Daniel was sitting casually on the bed, his feet up on the small table. The sight instantly put Femi on edge. "Femi, I wasn't expecting you," Rose stammered, stepping aside to let him in. "Clearly," Femi said, his eyes narrowing as he glanced at Daniel. "Who's this?" "This is Daniel," Rose said quickly. "He's just a friend. He lives nearby." Daniel, sensing the tension, stood up and extended a hand. "Hey, I'm just keeping her company. Nothing serious." Femi ignored the gesture, his jaw tightening. "Rose, can we talk?" After Daniel awkwardly excused himself, Femi turned to Rose, his voice low and tense. "What was that about? Why is he here?" Rose sighed, sitting down on the bed. "I get lonely, Femi. You're busy, and I have no one else to talk to. Daniel is just a friend, someone to keep me company." "Company?" Femi repeated incredulously. "Rose, I brought you here to start over, not to entertain random guys in your room." "It's not like that," Rose protested. "I swear, there's nothing going on. I don't want to feel alone all the time." Femi shook his head, conflicted. "This isn't what I expected from you, Rose. You need to figure out what you want because this isn't working for me."
Thanks for watching today's story. I believe you enjoyed every bit of it all. Now I want you to do me one favor, subscribe to this channel, like and turn on the notification bell if you have not done so that whenever I release my next video, you will be notified immediately. See you soon.